Of course you're going to create enemies in the way, but enough people are going to realize who you are, and they're going to tell the story behind closed doors. And eventually, all those guys behind closed doors are going to say, listen, man, I don't know, but like the other day we're at the house, and we're having dinner. This was like a couple months ago. And you're like, yeah, he's been with me for 19 years. How have you guys been together for this many years? Oh, when he was chosen as secure, and I said, no, I want him to be the one, not the other one. Remember this whole story that we're having a conversation? Yeah. How long has she been with you? Well, it used to be somebody else, but I said I want her. How long has she been with you? 18 years. What? Yeah. Why are they with you for this long? People don't sit for 18, 19 years if you don't treat them properly.
Patrick Bet-David had another sit-down. Well, it's technically the same sit-down, but in two different parts with Stephen A. Smith. Part 2 dropped, and Patrick Bet-David, of course, went in on Stephen A. Smith and destroyed all of his woke talking points, as well as all of his friends who have these same woke talking points that Stephen A. Smith likes to, just spew out there as a basically a parrot nowadays, just to kind of avoid making enemies and keep collecting those paychecks. And Patrick Bet-David just says, yeah, that's really stupid. If you do the right thing, you're going to make enemies, yes, but it is still the right thing. And then he also goes off later on about how Joe Rogan is a good person, he's a great interviewer, and all these people in the leftist media trying to cancel him, including Stephen A. Smith, who has said bad things about Joe Rogan on air before. Let's get into these clips here of Patrick Bet-David once again going in on Stephen A. Smith on his very own show live.
If you do the right thing and you're showing up with data, you're treating people fairly, of course you're going to create enemies in the way, but enough people are going to realize who you are, and they're going to tell the story behind closed doors. And eventually, all those guys behind closed doors are going to say, listen, man, I don't know, but like the other day we're at the house, and we're having dinner. This was like a couple months ago. And you're like, yeah, he's been with me for 19 years. How have you guys been together for this many years? Oh, when he was chosen as secure, and I said, no, I want him to be the one, not the other one. Remember this whole story that we're having a conversation? Yeah. How long has she been with you? Well, it used to be somebody else, but I said I want her. How long has she been with you? 18 years. What? Yeah. Why are they with you for this long? People don't sit for 18, 19 years if you don't treat them properly. These are the stories that eventually come out where somebody realizes. So if you do your part properly, if you come through and the numbers validates, eventually the entire market's going to sit there and say, look, I don't care how much shit you want to talk about this person. Mm-hmm. He's a real McCoy.
Your podcast is done in a vault.
Yes.
Why?
So I host an event once you're called the vault, because to me, everything in life is trying to crack the code.
Okay.
Right? You're trying to crack the code. And so years ago, I told Mario.
If you enjoy content like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
I have a book coming out in the month of September, a fiction book I've been working on for 13 and a half years.
Wow.
It's about a secret society that recruits young people and develops them into the future leaders of the world and have access to certain technology that nobody else has, that you can sit there and literally have a 3-hour conversation with people that have been dead for centuries, and you're asking them questions and they're giving you the answers as if they're alive today, having access to today's content and what's happened in history. So take any world leader that's alive, that's dead, and imagine having a combo with them. That's how they shape these great leaders in the future, right? So anyways, that book is coming out in the next...
It's a good, I guess, allegory on what's happening today. But also I want to show you the part in the Joe Rogan, where they talk about Joe Rogan. And obviously Patrick Bet-David is going to bat for Joe Rogan because people like Stephen A. Smith and the leftist media have attacked Joe Rogan so much. But he does make a really good point. And that in the public eye, if you say certain things, we see that with Candace Owens, we see that with so many people in the right-wing conservative media, you say the wrong things, you're going to get canceled, but you're normally rewarded on the back end with a lot of loyalty from your fan base and other truth seekers out there. There's other people who choose to just keep collecting easy paychecks, like Jordan Peterson, like Ben Shapiro, like Matt Walsh, and these guys. They just like to keep collecting paychecks, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with making money, but I do tend to be more loyal and to respect people more who are willing to tell the truth more. And Stephen A. Smith is one of those guys who has just kind of stayed status quo, not really stepping out there with his opinions, just, parroting, like I said, the same opinions that he is told by ESPN and by his friends that he is allowed to have. And Patrick Bet-David sitting across from him and saying, dude, you don't have to do that. Like, you can have your own opinion every once in a while. And yeah, in the public eye, they might try to cancel you or whatever, but behind closed doors, people are going to be talking about you so positively. And when it comes to your fan base, you're going to make such a good impression on them. They're going to become so loyal to you that it will be worth it in the future. Let's get into what Patrick Bet-David and Stephen A. Smith have to say about Joe Rogan here.
You're talking to Roland.
Because
he's a fighter. And it's what makes it good. Like the guy, by the way, maybe a little bit too much for himself. He sounds like he's super chaotic all the time. but I actually enjoyed having the discourse because it was boom, 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 boom. It was from the moment we got started till the end of the podcast, it was a fight, beginning to the end. And then once it was done, hey, man, all right, cool, great, boom, it was done.
Joe Rogan.
One of a kind. He's the GOAT, man. Joe, to me, is super likable.
He's the GOAT at this. Everything that we do on the podcast,
Yeah.
he's
question about it. But, you know, like the other day.
Notice how people, like, Joe Rogan is, I'm not even a big, like, Joe Rogan simp or anything like that. I do like his podcast, obviously. I post a lot of videos on them and stuff. I wish he would stop copyright claiming them. Please, Joe, stop doing that. But, you know, it is what it is. Even leftists who, like I said, Stephen A. Smith has said bad things about Joe Rogan, especially, you know, with the Aaron Rodgers being on Joe Rogan and stuff like that, saying certain things about certain medicines and stuff. They were coming after the guy, you know, no doubt about it. All mainstream media, all leftist media was going after Joe Rogan. Even the leftists that don't like him very much, they have to admit he is the greatest of all time podcaster.
I went and watched old Joe Rogan interviews. He did an old interview with Conan O'Brien, right? And I went and watched his interviews there to see how he was. And then you're seeing like the way he moves and what, you know, just not sitting still and how quick he was and working with the audience and energy was just attractive. You know, he's a grown man now, but you see him at 34 years old. He's always had a very attractive personality, and the way he sold, like that guy could have been a lawyer if he wanted to. He would be one hell of a debater. He would have done so many different things. But when you see where he's at right now, he's having a time of his life. Yeah, he's in a league of his own.
Who haven't you interviewed that you would love to?
Jimmy Carter, but it'll never happen.
Jimmy Carter?
Oh yeah, I'm in U.S. because of Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Carter would be one.
That's basically it when it comes to the Joe Rogan stuff and whenever they're going, you know, talking about controversial topics between the two. I just, once again, find it very interesting that even leftists like Stephen A. Smith, who absolutely, I mean, I from what he says on ESPN. Now, I don't know if the guy actually says his true opinions on ESPN or if he just parrots whatever ESPN tells him to, which either way, it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not against anybody making money. Like if that's what you have to do to make money, it is what it is. But I like the stance of Patrick Bet-David more, and Stephen A. Smith definitely has the money to do this nowadays, where you kind of just give the middle finger to ESPN and say, hey, if you don't like what I'm saying, go ahead and terminate my contract, you know, and I'll go do my own thing. Stephen A. Smith could do that. He has a decent enough brand. He has a lot of money. He could do the Patrick Bet-David route, and I just respect that a whole lot more. People who are willing to take the heat publicly in the public eye in the you know cancel culture age that we're in. Patrick Bet-David is willing to take that heat. Stephen A. Smith is not. And that's probably coming from ESPN telling him, dude, really, really bad things are going to happen if you say your true opinions on Joe Rogan or say your true opinions on CV19 or just the random things like that they now talk about on ESPN for some reason. But on ESPN, he doesn't say things like he says on this show. And Patrick Bet-David goes on there. He's like, dude, yeah, if you say these things, you might get some heat from ESPN. You might get some heat from the normie ESPN audience that just likes to see the leftist talking points also spewed. Talk about how there's not enough black head coaches in the NFL or all this other nonsense about the WNBA should be equally paid to the NBA. It's like, okay, guys, if you want to be equally paid to the NBA, just go play in the NBA. Simple as that, right? Obviously, they couldn't cut it. So, but they would never say that, right? Stephen A. Smith would never say that on air that WNBA players couldn't cut in the NBA, because if he said that, he would not only get heat from ESPN, but also get canceled from the women on the ESPN shows that he's on and also the general public. Patrick Bet-David is saying, dude, just say the common sense ideas. And yeah, you'll take heat from those people, but from the people who are actually out there with common sense in their brain, the people who you actually want on your side, they're going to show immense loyalty to you. And that's going to be worth way more than getting on the good side of ESPN or getting on the good side of these cancel culture weirdos online. Let me know in the comments what you think about Patrick Bet-David and his sit down with Stephen A. Smith. Thought it was very, very interesting conversation. I like how Patrick Bet-David kind of attacked a lot of Stephen A. Smith's ideas without getting super heated or anything like that. You know, he did it in a very tactful way. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Stephen A. Smith and Patrick Bet-David situation.